President Obama was going to give his December review sometime around the 16th of December, that he was going to tell us, give us an update on how things were going. And so we were anxious to be hearing that and to hear that in Afghanistan. In the days before, various statements were made. First of all, this was back some months before, March 19th, 2010. The director of UNICEF said that Afghanistan is the most difficult place to be born as a child in the world. And this is based on infant mortality, nutrition, and everything. The World Food Program put Afghanistan dead last in terms of food security. The President's review that we are on target, that we are meeting our objectives, that gains are being made. They're fragile gains, but still gains. And this was from, it's very difficult to understand what informed this. Using the social media, set up a Skype-a-thon, a 24-hour period of time, which would be these teenagers from Bamiyan giving their review. And so for 24 hours, we had calls from all over the world. And this is a radio station. We had a technician for a radio station who we befriended and who was very, very helpful. And so this is one of the only places where we had a good internet connection, and we're also where we had electricity that we could depend on. It was otherwise on and off. And people called in, and folks talked to them. That what people needed more than anything was not medicines and surgery and stuff. Those are the symptoms, but they needed peace. I was just blown away by being here. And the food was excellent. We ate trout out of this river, broiled trout. And I never ate so much fish in one day. They just bring it out in great big piles. And the fruit and the nuts, it was just... And every place I've ever heard of, when people talk, almost everybody, of course most of the people in Kabul are from someplace else, and everyone talks about their home in such superlative language. Everybody says their home place is the most beautiful place on earth. And just to see what would bring people, how desperate people would have to be to leave this and go into Kabul as it exists now. What fear. Well, I got home and got sick and got well just in time. Actually, didn't get well until I got to Las Vegas. Renee and I and 12 of our friends were in April of '09, were in Nevada protesting the drones that are flying in Afghanistan. These are big model airplanes that look like bugs that are driven with motors that are made for snowmobiles, and they're kind of putting in the air around there, but they take off from the ground in Afghanistan, and mostly it's Blackwater people who are putting them up. And then the controls go to Creech Air Force Base, and now there are more places around where the controls are. And there are mostly young people just out of boot camp who are sitting at these controls with state-of-the-art video feeds 7,000 miles away, and from the safety of that distance are pulling the triggers. That General Petraeus actually apologized because a couple days ago there were some 10 boys in the Kunar province were gathering firewood and were attacked. It was an air attack. I'm not sure if it was a drone attack. I believe it probably was. Got to look more into it. And killed 9 of the boys and wounded another. And of course, the immediate response of the U.S. was that that's not true. but he took it back. But this is on the heels of, if you remember, last week, General Petraeus, who's now apologizing, talking about the same province where they're saying in the last weeks 23 children have been killed. General Petraeus, speaking for the United States, said, "The Afghan people are burning their own children to make us look bad." So all I could think of is what political pressure had to be put on him now that he's apologizing. And all I can think of with that, too, is if this was a drone attack, it was probably flown from here. And the Afghan people are not different from us. They love their children as we do. But it is a very, very different place. What's happening, though, with these drones is you have somebody, 19 years old, just out of boot camp, 7,000 miles away, who's never been there, who is making the decision from 30,000 feet in the air who a good guy and who a bad guy is. And this is another thing that riles me. I have not been able to find, I've Googled it, I'm not sure if Obama ever has said it, but Joe Biden says it over and over again. Members of the Senate and the House keep saying it. Our military leaders keep talking about bad guys and good guys. That's very disturbing. So these decisions are being made by people who have no kind of context. Would there ever be a case where a person would enter a property surrounded by a fence and a no trespassing sign, and it would not be trespass? And he said, of course, there are many things to consider. Yeah, there are lots of times. And he was asked for an example, and he said, there's a house with a no trespassing sign, and the house is on fire, and you see a child yelling from a window. Said a person would not only be legally allowed to knock that door down, would be obligated. A person could be said to be committing a crime. And he said, allowing a child to burn over no trespassing sign is poor public policy. I quoted one of the operators here at Creech who was talking about an interview with America Magazine, talking about the post-traumatic stress that these people suffer even though they're so far away from the war. And he said, for us, the war is 7,000 miles away, meaning the distance geographically from Nevada to Afghanistan. The war is also 18 inches away, in the distance from their face to the screen. And I told the judge that that distance that he was talking about is a dangerous illusion, and it's a lie. And the purpose of our acting was to expose that lie and to say, to this judge in Nevada, the war is just down the highway. President Karzai signed a deal for the TAPI pipeline. TAPI from the first letters of the countries: Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, India. This has been in the works for a long time, but the ground's going to be broken soon. And natural gas in the Caspian Sea, where there's not many people, but lots of gas, bringing the pipeline to India, where there's one of the largest, fastest growing markets. And this was at great advantage to American businesses. This was signed at the time. I have to say that I kind of wonder if maybe President Obama was telling the truth, that we are on course and we're meeting our objectives. I fear that our objective is to prevent a civil society from forming in Afghanistan that would allow people to make their own decisions, and a government that would make a deal that was of more advantage to the people of Afghanistan than to US corporations, who might even decide that China might do a better job at it. And that should be their prerogative and their business. One thing we saw, the question keeps coming up, what would happen if we leave immediately? And the answer, even from those people who were most insisting that we should, is that there would certainly be a lot of chaos. It certainly mean hard times, but that's not going to happen. We're building in Kabul the largest, the embassy we're building in Kabul now will surpass the one in Baghdad. Military bases being built that are obviously meant to be permanent, and the only roads that are really being paved are the ones that connect those to each other. I also want to look at this map again to look at the borders. Border with China and Iran, Pakistan, India. Having bases there, a presence there, is very strategic. But the border with the Soviet Union, the fact that Obama calls it the smart war, should have by itself kept him out of the White House. It's not, it's another dumb war. And this money that's going into this billions and billions of dollars that don't really exist in the real world, but the effect of the debt sure does. This is the threat. And as much as I'd like to see this damn empire dissolve, I would like to see it happen more peacefully than going down this rabbit hole where, this rat hole we're being thrust down to. King said, Martin Luther King Jr. said that any society that spends more on weapons of destruction than on programs of social uplift is drifting toward spiritual death. And we're hurtling toward that spiritual death now. And as anyone is talking, the last election surveys said that only 3% of Americans thought that the war was an important issue for that election. And now there's this real dissonance as people are talking about, name the issue, how many ways our society is degrading and falling apart. And it all comes back to all the spending on these wars, on the fact that the United States is now busy building 3 new nuclear weapons plants. Somebody came up with a figure the other day that the real budget, military budget for the coming year, if you take everything hidden in the different corners, is more than $1 trillion. That we should not be talking, whether we're talking about global warming, talking about our schools, talking about our jobs, talking about our roads, that all these movements have to become anti-war movements. It is dishonest, it is false, it is a useless waste of time for people to get together and talk about these things without bringing in the war. I've stayed a couple days in Chicago, in Uptown, and they were having a debate, not really a debate, a public meeting, forum, in the Uptown neighborhood with all the candidates for the alderman position from that ward. And the question was asked of them, and this is a very, like many neighborhoods, a neighborhood in crisis, what do you think this ward will look like 4 years from now? And they each said, oh, we can pull things together. We'll have better schools, safer roads, we'll have better public transportation, we'll increase the housing stock for low-income people, and have a new library, and blah, blah, blah. And it's all, there's a sense in which all those dreams were a lie, because intrinsic in that question is, are we going to be in Afghanistan 4 years from now? Because if we are, that neighborhood is going to be more and more broken, the streets more dangerous, there'll be less public transportation, less housing, and there's nothing, absolutely nothing that a Chicago alderman will be able to do about it. There is nothing that whoever is in the State House here will be able to do about the increasing erosion of the civil life here in Iowa. Nothing that your mayor will be able to do, nothing your school board will be able to do. This is the issue. This is the issue. This is the threat to the United States. It's not anything outside of us. It's right here. So